Oh, I want to welcome everybody for showing up. My name is Angel Rivera. I'm a developer advocate for CircleCI. And I want to introduce, I got some good news, or great news for Circle. We had a recent change. So a little bit about myself. Again, I'm a developer advocate for Circle, which means that I go out, and I probably met a bunch of you in the attendees section or people attending the webinar, or not a webinar, this is not a webinar, attending the session here. So yeah, I've been on the road for about 2 years, off and on at events. So I probably met a bunch of you folks there. And since I got my wings clipped, or we got our wings clipped here because of COVID-19, we needed to come up with a new way to interface with CircleCI users. And this is the way we decided to do it, is creating this guess virtual hangout, whatever, called Open Circle Sessions. Now, you know, the name, if anybody can come up with a better name, please share. Also, the big news is we hired a director of developer relations, and I wanted to introduce him to all of you today. His name is Jeremy. Is it, I say mice, is that right?
It's Mies. It's Mies.
Mies, okay.
Yeah,
so
I've answered to everything. In
yeah.
fact, I know a few people out there that have called me by plenty of different things over the years, so I'll answer to all of it. But yeah, name's Jeremy Mies. I'm glad to be here. Excited to kind of join CircleCI and take help take us to the next level in how we interface with developers and build relationships. So yeah, thanks for
the intro,
for being here.
It's all good. So just a quick, I guess, the legalese stuff. We do want everyone to adhere to the code of conduct that we have. So yeah, basic, simple things, just treat each other with respect, and that's about it, right? So be good or be gone is the motto I go by. It's hanging up in a bar in New York called McSorley. So if you're ever in New York and you want to go to an old school bar, check it out. It's a nice place. But they have a sign that says "Be good or be gone," and that's my personal code of conduct rules. But also, so today, these open circle sessions are designed to be, again, informal conversations, a way for us to communicate directly, grassroots level, with the community. And so we decided to, touch on a topic that everyone's pretty much interested in that uses Circle. And the topic is the new UI. So Jeremy and I talked Kate and Olu into coming and joining us and having a discussion with everyone and seeing if we can answer people's questions about it. Have them, I'll ask them a few questions about, some of the design choices and reasons why the new UI came into play. And then, yeah, so the way that this is our first time doing this, by the way, so it's going to be all, mishmashy. But the way we're going to try to do questions is folks can just there's a Q&A button in the Zoom client. If you want to ask a question at any time, just go ahead and populate that or ask your question in there. And what we're going to try to do is unmute a few folks so that you can have a direct conversation. I don't know if that's going to be technically possible. We'll give it a shot and see. But please ask as many questions and make as many comments as you like. Again, this is very informal. And, we're having candid conversations. So yeah, if it's related to the UI or, anything, just, again, code of conduct, but you can ask pretty much anything and we'll try to answer it. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds great. Thanks, Angel. One thing on the questions is if there are some questions that get asked that we aren't able to get to, we'll be sure to post those out into our Discuss platform at discuss.circleci.com and kind of continue the discussion going forward. So with that, I'd love to introduce, we have Kate and Olu joining us. Kate is I'll let her introduce her in a second, but she's our senior product manager with the team overhauling the new UI. And then we also have Olu Oyendoso, who is a senior staff software engineer who's also working on the new UI. So I wanted to bring them both together. we'll let them introduce themselves and what they're working on and the things that they enjoy. So Kate, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I think you covered it. I'm a super passionate former developer and former UXer and former startup founder who, like many product folks, took a little tour through half the roles in tech before arriving in product, and try to bring together all of those perspectives and empathy with all of those users to build great products for CircleCI. I joined Circle in December of 2018, so a little over a year ago. And I think it was February 1st, 2019 that we started building this new UI. So it's been a large part of my experience at Circle. It's been a ton of fun. The team has bonded immensely. And I'm excited to share with you all some of the decisions that were made and why they were made and answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Olu, your turn.
Okay. Hey, I'm Olu. I've been at Circle for about 2.5 years-ish. I am obsessed with creating great user experiences. I've kind of done that most of my career. Yeah, it's been fun being on the team here. I kind of tech led the team overall in the new UI, and it's been a lot of fun, and we can't wait to get lots of feedback from folks out there. Yeah, that's it.
All right, cool. So let me move this little window out of the way. So, all right, now that everybody's introduced themselves, I guess the topic of this session is new UI exposed, right? So I wanted to ask a question about, and then actually someone had asked it already in the Q&A. Oh no, it hasn't been asked yet, but there's a question that we're going to touch on that's in the queue by Norbert. So Norbert, your question will be answered in a few, so hang tight. So the question I have, right, Kate, and I'm sure a lot of developers, I see this all the time, especially in and I hear it in the conversations that I'm having is, yeah, why are you guys changing the UI? And, you know, what are some of the reasons, you know, that you can share with us about the changes of the UI and why are we doing a new UI for CircleCI?
Yeah, that's the why is always my favorite place to start anything off. So I'm glad we're starting there. And just so everyone listening is aware, we wanted to keep this really casual and informal. So I didn't prepare a speech. I have no notes in front of me. I'll just tell you candidly why we did it. So first of all, the CircleCI UI was made in a world where everything was job centric. So these days, it's not all job centric. It's usually multiple jobs in a workflow. So the workflow is like how each job hits each other as it passes through. And then I do have a note in front of me. 33% of orgs are now running multiple workflows in a pipeline. And so what that means is you can kick off multiple simultaneous workflows at the same time. And the pipeline, which we're aware is a new concept or term for our users, is the envelope that wraps all of those workflows together. And the old UI just did not solve for that. Everything was job centric. It was just a long job list. And a bunch of our users were like, we have 38 jobs in a pipeline across 2 different workflows. And if we run one build, it takes up your entire dashboard of just that, you know, one pipeline, that whole list of jobs. So we can't find anything. And it was becoming effectively impossible for them to do their work. We also anticipate that will only become more common. We have a future we're building towards in which more people will want to run multiple workflows in a pipeline. It will just become more and more useful to do that with orbs, with potentially workflows kicking off other workflows, et cetera, et cetera. So, but we can't reach that future unless we had a workflow or pipeline-based world. So that probably brings you to the second question, which is why couldn't you just build that in the current UI? And Olu, maybe I can kick it over to you for some kick notes on that. From the product perspective, all we heard from our engineers was we can't get anything done. It's such a mess for so many reasons that changing one thing breaks everything. And so we wanted to ship this more incrementally. We would have loved to build the pipelines view in the old UI, and it was just effectively impossible from our standpoint. Olu, do you want to share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think the key thing here for us was just us being able to deliver features at a sustainable pace. Historically, our front end had gone through several revisions, but a lot of those revisions were all still in the same code base and made a lot of simple things more complex than they needed to be over time. And I think we just got to a point where the cost of change was a lot higher than we expected, or a lot higher than was sustainable for us to keep an engineering team going. And we made the tough decision. And it's been paying off so far. Yeah.
So yeah, I used to have tons of conversations about what Kate has described. You know, folks were using the dashboard, and yeah, I was just getting inundated with just tons of information, and it was hard to navigate through and get to the parts that you actually wanted to see. So yeah, those are really good reasons why to make the changes. And of course, right, it's software, so we always want to improve and make things better, and actually fit, right, the actual workflows or work the way we work currently. So yeah, those are good choices in my mind. So
so I think the next kind of take from that, Kate and Olu, could you discuss kind of the team's design process and like the challenges you faced as you said, kind of rebuilding from the ground up, when having to get rid of a lot of that technical debt and kind of kick it all off, start new? What are some of those, what's that process you went through, and then the challenges you faced accordingly?
That's another great question. So when we kicked this project off, we made up our own MVP alternative process that we called the waffle, because rebuilding something entirely waterfall style, every single person on this call knows the problems with that. But also building something MVP style usually connotates pretty bad code that doesn't scale very well. I don't know how many people on this call have rebuilt an MVP code base, but that's almost what we were working with, and it didn't end so well for us. So WAFL to us stands for well architected, functionally limited. So what that means is we take the kind of the mindset of looking at the whole thing globally from an architecture perspective first, and making sure this is a scalable platform that could hold up all of our CircleCI users' builds. But then we only added back one feature at a time. And what that was for us was sort of a litmus test of what was actually important and when it was important and how important it was. So we started with just releasing an extremely embarrassingly blank page that just had the step output on it. And then we put out this poll that said, is it easier or harder to solve a failing build in this? And it was startling how many people said it was easier, even with that on the page, because we made the font bigger. And I know that that's controversial. Some people don't like the bigger font, but a lot of people do. And then we built from there. Next we added back the duration, and after that we added back test summary, and then came artifacts, and then the workflows page, and then the pipelines page, et cetera, et cetera. But always each time we were adding back one functionality based on what was the next most needed thing, and collecting feedback along the entire way. We've learned so much from our users. I think we've done close to 100 formal hour-long UX sessions at this point. And just learned a ton along the way. If you've noticed it changing, it's because it is. It's because as we released, fixing Control F was the most important thing. So we fixed that. And then by fixing that, colorization, we accidentally took away. So now colorization is the most important thing. So we're going to add that back without breaking Control F, et cetera. So we're hacking on what the most cumbersome or burden-inducing items are, one at a time. And in terms of the biggest challenges from the product perspective, and then I want to hear Olu from your perspective. From the product perspective, it was a blessing and a curse that we released it so early and got feedback so soon, because I truly believe, and I think the whole team is aligned, that overall we have landed on a better UX than we would have had if we had started that way. However, we had people who tested the new UI in November, and they're still telling us but XYZ thing is missing. You can't launch this. But XYZ thing is no longer missing because that was months ago. And we've iterated since then. And so I think by showing people the project along the way, a lot of people, they lost trust because they saw it uncompleted. And I think that's been the hardest thing. Yeah. Olu, what about from the technical perspective?
Yeah, from the technical perspective, there's a few. Rewrites are usually really hard when particularly rewrites that are on the UI, because we're taking software that people use, people depend on work daily, and giving it, rewriting it. And in a lot of cases, particularly in this case, it affected the UX of things and how things looked for customers. So one of the challenges for us was that the idea that we wanted to be incrementally correct over time. And correctness could be in terms of the feature set we were delivering, or in terms of the UX. So from an engineering perspective, that was a challenge, taking something that existed already and starting to rebuild it. We're fortunate enough that we used the new UI to build out the new UI, so that feedback loop from an engineering perspective was a lot shorter for us. But diving a little bit into the technical detail, like we had to conquer so much early on. I think when we started building this, we started from the epicenter of the UI, which is what is a job and how are we rebuilding the job? And we started building all the way out. And we faced so many challenges with how we dealt with streaming statuses, how we dealt with APIs, how we dealt with making sure the UI was responsive at the same time, doing a lot of work in the background to stay connected and stay up to date. And all of those challenges are interesting, but particularly when we have a lot of customers using our product and we start rolling that out, we get feedback about things that are broken or not quite there yet. And it's kind of a fork in the road where you answer to feedback, but also you're laser focused on delivering what the future is. It was full of a lot of challenges, and but it was fun so far.
Yeah, in my conversations, yeah, I had the first time I heard waffle, to be fair, was I think someone wrote a blog post at Circle that I didn't read, and was getting asked questions at a conference, and I'm like, yeah, we have waffles at Circle, of course. Like, yeah, maybe it was like, and then no, the blog post. So I looked it up, right, and then I understood it. Which when I read it, to be fair, I was just like, wow, this is a pretty interesting, like, I like the transparency about it. I'm all about transparency, and yeah, it was pretty. I gotta say, innovative in a sense, that you're being transparent about the process. And I think, you learn a lot when you're just being open and, delivering value based on what people are asking for. I think it's really important to do that. Again, there's a lot of value. So it's pretty neat. And I definitely want to see that in the future with other projects and companies, right? I think it's a pretty cool way to do it. So, I have a question, Olu, mainly towards you about, let me find it here. I just lost it. So the question I have is more about discussing some of the design choices. I guess you and Kate can answer this, but discussing some of the design choices and the hard decisions, right? Like, can you think of any, like, moments where you were like, faced with like a really hard choice and what that was, or a couple of them, and share?
Kate, do you want to kick this off?
I think we both know what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
That was a nice pivot redirection there, Olu. That was good.
I'll go right after Kate.
Good.
But I would have saved the first for her.
Okay, there's already a few questions rolling in about viewing cross-project pipelines. I think that's the spiciest thing we're going to discuss here today. So let's just dive right into it. So I'll take personal responsibility for that. I screwed up. That was me. And we're going to fix it. I've committed to doing everything in my power to getting you a cross-project view of pipelines before we force this on users. If that means we don't make the current proposed April 15th cutoff date, then we're going to push back. I guess I shouldn't say that quite yet because our engineering manager hasn't given it the thumbs up, but everyone else is aligned. So I want to make sure he's aligned first, but I think we're not trying to ruin your workflow here. So here's the reasons that happened. we came to a point where we were building the pipelines page, and around at the same time, simultaneously, the API team was building the pipelines API. And we had discussions about the fact that they were only going to build that API to serve one project at a time. And the reason for that is because of our GitHub or our VCS permissions model. So every single time we trigger that, we have to first trigger the VCS model to ask, hey, does this person have permission to access this project? And if you follow 200 projects, we have to ping, using your personal token, the VCS 200 times before we can start loading anything. And then we have to wait again for all the pipeline stuff to start coming in. But that adds a ton of burden to that process. And we do cache GitHub permissions, but we can't cache them for very long. Because if you had permissions right now, but then 10 minutes from now you like quit your job or something, we need to know that. Like, it needs to be a pretty quick feedback cycle for us to ping it again. So as we discussed this, we talked about, do we need cross projects pipelines? It's going to be a huge technical burden. It's going to slow page load time. And up to that point, our user experience sessions had suggested that we did not. We watched close to 100 people in their workflow on a day-to-day basis, and they worked in one project. And that's the majority of users. I think it's like 80% of people only push to one project in a week or 2 projects in a week, which is still pretty limited. So the large force of our users did not need a cross projects view. And then we started rolling this out, and we started hearing, where's my cross-project pipeline view? And what we identified is that the individual contributor developer, which is like 80% of our users, really doesn't need it, but a lot, or could live without it. But people on the DevOps side, or people who are using really intense microservices, they need it, or they need some version of it. And so it was interesting. We mentioned that April 15th date, and it was like all of a sudden the floodgates opened of everyone saying, no, you can't do this, and writing into our support team and tweeting at us, and we listened and we heard. So here's the issue. We still don't want to slow the page load. Nobody wants that. You can't get things done if it takes 20 seconds for you to load the page. What we figured out through some brainstorming with various teams is that we can get permissions for up to 20, I think it was 25-ish projects at the same time without slowing anything down. So what we're going to do is build some kind of alternative view where you can check up to 20-ish projects that are the most important to you, that you want to see in a cross-project way. Totally understand that some of you use 50 workflows at the same time. The people we've talked to who originally told us we need like 100 projects at the same time, when we said, could you pick 25 and get most of your work done, they have said yes when we've gone back to them at this point. So we feel somewhat validated that this will be a good solution for our users. And again, this is the best way we can pursue this without slowing the page load time. So yeah, that was the hardest decision and the most wrong decision that came from the product side in building this.
Well,
I was going to ask to kind of to take off of that just a little bit.
Yeah.
So what did you learn out of that kind of challenge, like that whole, that the choice and the decision out of that? What did you learn going forward?
I think that weighing my words. I think that like something we learned is that we can't prioritize one persona just because they're the majority. Because even though the DevOps persona or the team lead persona is in the minority of our number of users, they are mission critical to an organization. And so if they can't get their work done because they don't have that cross-project view, then nobody's getting their work done. And so I think that was a big lesson learned. I think another one though was getting people on the product as quickly as possible, which we pursued from the very beginning, but it was always like, hey, I think it was like announcing the date that the old UI would close that really got us the real responses. Because before everyone was like, oh, this is nice, things are good, maybe I don't like the font size, or like the colors are too bright, or there's too much white space. But then once we said, no, we're going to turn this UI off April 15th, it was like, no, you're not. No, you're not, without a cross-project view. And so I think nudging people over the line to be on the new UI sooner rather than later galvanized better, more honest feedback about what was most important.
Well, it's always like that, right? When you're going to take something away that people really don't use on a day-to-day, you know, like there's always services that get deprecated and such, and you need that lead time. But eventually a business has to shut stuff down because they can't afford to keep things running like that. It's just, you know, becomes a money pit at some point. And, you know, for companies, I'm saying,
I think that's true, but that now I'm sort of contradicting myself here. I'm thinking aloud in real time. Maybe you all have some thoughts. But if we had nudged everybody over even sooner in November and said, hey, we're gonna turn it off in December. First of all, that would have been a lie. And second, we try to be transparent with our users. And second of all, that would have gone back to that whole breaking people's trust thing that we talked about earlier. So I wonder if there was some kind of like middle ground here where we could have gotten more users on by saying like, we'll give you 10,000 free credits if you opt into the new UI and stay there for a couple weeks. But it's experimental. It's still in experimental mode. It's going to change, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I just think, like I said, you know, at some point, things that have to kind of slowly, and when it comes to UIs, you know, these changes happen all the time. I mean, I remember working in the federal government, and what was it, Office, right? Office 2000 something was coming. It was the new ribbon-based thing, and I can tell you, like where I was working, I was supporting, you know, I was a regional manager, and I was supporting like, you know, thousands of people, and there was a pocket of lawyers. And these are like bit elderly lawyers. They've been around the government for like 35 years or something. And they were super pissed. Like, you're not changing my Word doc. And I'm like, I have to, because security, you know, all of the reasons why. But the way that we got around that was there was some plugin that you could install, and it would make that ribbon look like the old menu. It was like this oddest thing. And I bought this plugin and I deployed it, and just to the folks, you know, who had impacted the most. And the reason I used, to be honest, was like, I asked them straight up, I was like, when do you plan on retiring? And they're like, oh, like 2 years, 3 years. And I said, okay, cool, I'll get the plugin for you. And they were like, yeah, just plug me in until I retire. And that was like the solution, right? So it was a simple, and it was very cheap, but a simple solution for the people that were impacted the most, right? So yeah, it's a hard one, but at some point you have to find a happy medium.
Yeah, it's good. What to kind of piggyback off of that, even is like, what are, with some of the decisions and the design choices and such, like, can you describe both Kate and Olu? Can you describe the tech stacks that are being used and why we've chosen to use them versus, you know, something else that's out there?
Sure. I can jump in here. So I'll give a little bit of history of front end at CircleCI. It's a little bit complicated, but our engineering team here is closure heavy. I wouldn't use the term closure shop. It's a closure shop, but we're closure heavy for good reasons, great language. And our UI evolved to the point where a lot of it was written in ClojureScript. And a particular framework called Ohm and Ohm Next. So we deployed our UI in ClojureScript with Ohm, then it evolved to Ohm Next. And we kind of hit a brick wall once again with how we could iterate on that UI. Ohm is a great language. ClojureScript is a great language. Ohm is a great framework. But we had issues with the community, how much we had in the community to rely on. With how fast we wanted to iterate, there just wasn't much out there in terms of resources, in terms of plugins, in terms of even a hiring pipeline for us. So it made things that are typically easier a lot more difficult. I think for a growing company like us, it wasn't the right fit. For a lot of startups out there, it still is the right fit, but for where we are or where we were at CircleCI, it wasn't the right fit. So we made a decision, a strategical decision to move away from ClojureScript to JavaScript. And when we made that decision, we chose to rewrite in the same app. So I think the decision was around the ideas of everything new would be in JavaScript rather than ClojureScript, but acknowledging the fact that we would have a lot more ClojureScript in the code base still. That was good at that point in time. Looking back at it, it wasn't the best decision because it made the integration of both the ClojureScript world and the JavaScript world complex, and a lot of issues lied at that integration point. And kudos to the team. There was a lot of engineering effort to smooth that out over time. But once again, we got to a point where we had outgrown that solution. So with us starting in 2019, early 2019, we started thinking about the new UI. And for UI frameworks and UI today, particularly in JavaScript, that ecosystem is wild. That's the best way to put it. An app you wrote 6 months ago is probably outdated today. So one of the things we identified early on is that as we architect the new UI, it's very important for us to approach it with making the ability for us to change and pivot later on, making that cost a lot cheaper for us. So in terms of the stack, we doubled down on community tools that are being used rampantly in the community, right? So an example of that was TypeScript. We moved away from Flow and adopted TypeScript, not necessarily because at the point TypeScript was a better fit for us, but because it was more rampant in the community. There was a lot of uptake with it in the community. So we doubled down on TypeScript. For the UI layer, we used React, which is somewhat of an industry standard now. And with React, we use a framework called Next, which has made using React in production so much more pleasurable for us. Our engineers are actually focused on actually writing UIs rather than configuring and kind of defining patterns around that. And for the data side, we use Apollo. We're big on our UIs are big on GraphQL. I think we use it for an interesting case, which isn't very typical, but for us, we see GraphQL as our anti-corruption layer, where our APIs have matured to a point where we do have a few APIs. And across those APIs, the same thing could mean different things across all of the APIs. And we kind of put GraphQL in the middle of all of that to unify our APIs for us. From a CSS standpoint, we use styled components by Motion. And we're very happy with our stack today, but I think it will be irresponsible for us to, particularly in the JavaScript community today, to double down on the stack as something that will not evolve over time. With the way we've architected our code base, it's made room for each of those pieces to be able to be swapped out at a relatively cheaper rate in terms of effort, if that makes sense. So just TLDR, we're building on TypeScript, React, Next.js, styled components, and a lot of GraphQL via Apollo.
Great. No, thank you. That's good. That's some good information.
Hey, Jeremy,
so,
real quick, before I forget, we forgot to mention early on to the folks out there, the attendees, we're donating $25 to the charity of your choice. All right. Are we doing the Tisbit thing?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So yeah, in response to COVID-19 and trying to help folks out, survive and get through this thing, we decided to talk to management and get okay and the blessing to do this. So yeah, if you're on, even if you have us on mute, that's fine. But if you want to get $25 to donate to your charity, please just stay on, because we're only going to give it to the folks who are, at the end of the session, or at least been here for a while. I forgot to mention it early on. I apologize. I noticed a few.
Yeah, no, I meant to mention that early on as well. It's our way of like Angel said, kind of giving back, but it's recognizing that, you know, we could have taken and sent something to everyone out there that attends and says, hey, you know, thank you, the t-shirts, the stickers, all that. But really what really makes a difference right now is helping out those charities, helping out those that help others. And so that's really what we wanted to kind of commit to. So, so yeah, thank you for reminding me, Angel, on that.
And one other thing, before, so the questions we're getting, I'm seeing a lot of cool questions and stuff. So the way I'd like to try, Jeremy, to do this is, I want to have the attendees look at the Q&A. So if you're interested in a question, just upvote it, right? And then we're going to open mic this thing, try to at least, and then you can have a verbal conversation with us, right? So we'll start from the top down and work our way down. So if if you're interested in a particular question that's in there, please,
give it a thumbs up.
Yeah, give us a thumbs up so we know what the hottest question is, that we can get it done for you, or get you verbally asking it. Because I definitely want folks to have that conversation. Yeah. So if you're comfortable, speaking on the microphone, that's great. If you want to turn your cam on, that's cool too. But whatever.
We won't be able to do that. But yeah, we'll have that.
Okay. But yeah, if you wanted to ask a question verbally, that would be cool. Yeah. So please vote the question up that you want to hear an answer to.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, so we'll go into the next spot. One thing we wanted to kind of do is give a opportunity to for Kate and Olu both to kind of give us a walkthrough of the new UI, and kind of do some comparisons, highlight kind of some of those improvements between the old look, what's old and what's new. How does that kind of fit? Demonstrate how the new, those that are not really hot on the new UI, how they can access their favorite old UI features. So here, I'm going to turn that over to, I'm going to assume Kate here, who's going to kind of drive that and, kick us off with the walkthrough.
Yeah. I'm assuming that a lot of the folks who are on this call have kind of seen the new UI. So I'll make this really quick and I'll highlight like a couple of quick upgrades, and then also some things that came recently. So you may not have noticed that they arrived and might be sad they're missing. Okay, can everyone see this?
Yeah, you're good.
Perfect. Sorry, Gordon, we're showing your failed build. This is like such a perfect failed build because it has all the features on it. Okay, so first of all,
you heard it here. There's a perfect failed build.
All failed builds are perfect.
There you go.
Actually, we really encourage our users to embrace a failure as a positive thing. We've heard from users that there's some kind of stigmatization around pushing a failed build. We're into it. Like, fail fast, fail quick, learn what you need to do and move on. And we've seen that users who push more often recover more quickly. So if you're waiting to like push your build up to make sure it doesn't fail, it'll take you longer to recover if it does fail. Anyway, side tangent. Okay, so everything is pipelines based, right? So see this breadcrumb up here at the top? This helps you get where you need to go. This is the job. This is the workflow. This is the branch. This is the pipeline. So it's just little like layers on layers on layers. So before we jump all the way up to the top, a couple of big changes on this jobs page. We put the test summary down here, and that's because we talked to this one user who told us, about, I don't understand why you have to say see more to see all of the tests, because I always just have to click see more all of the time. One thing we screwed up here is that we need to have the total number of tests that ran listed somewhere, and that's still on our backlog to add back. For those of you who use test summary, you're very annoyed with us right now. And the other thing we didn't do is put a number here. So if you're like over here and you don't know that tests failed, there's no indicator that says that it does. So we're going to add that back too. Another big change was artifacts. This isn't a good example, but artifacts were nested before. So you had to click like 8 different times to get down to a single artifact. These days, we just unnest all of them and we list the whole folder structure. And then you can use Control F to get to the file you need very quickly. Another upgrade, a lot of you have said you don't like the smaller screen for viewing the steps. Like it's like scrolling within scrolling. Others have said they really like it because then you can see where the step is in the rest of the workflow as opposed to just being lost in a sea of black text. So one way you get the best of both worlds is this little button here. and this will load the whole step for you outright. You can Control F in there and get to what you need wherever you want. There's also this download button. That's not very exciting. The parallel runs thing here. So we allow you to switch faster in between the failed ones or go to all and go to the passing one. But usually we've never seen users go to the passing parallel run. It's almost always the failed ones. So that's why we hide them automatically. One thing that you probably think you're missing that we added back, but not very well, was this queued and timing information. So if you hover over that dot now, it will tell you the queue and waiting time. We found after we launched that was not very discoverable and also not helpful to our support team because they can't screenshot it and send it to users when they're explaining things. So instead that will be added back right around here next to the other timing information. Reruns are all down here. If you were missing any reruns or cancel, this is where you can find them. And also up here is where the configuration file is and also the project settings. Let's skip the settings pages because those are boring. We'll walk right up the breadcrumb here. So here we have, oh, this will also, where is it? This one will also get you to the branch. There's some stuff you can click in here, but the breadcrumb, talking really fast, gets you where you're going most of the time. So if you click this, you get to the workflow. The workflow is redesigned. It's hopefully prettier for you. There's some people for whom it got more confusing, but for the majority of our users, this new design is less confusing. So we're excited about that. From this page, you can still rerun or jump to project settings and config again. Walking up the breadcrumb a little more. If you click this link, this is going to be such a sad demonstration. It takes you to the branch that you're on and all of the runs for that specific branch. We're having an API issue. You may have noticed this is very slow loading. The API team is on it. Oh, this one loaded. So that specific branch filter will be returning faster soon. So that's everything there. And then you quickly jump to the branch and can see everything there. A few highlights up at this top level of stuff that we changed. We made it, again, packaged so that all of the pipelines are listed just as a pipeline and not as a job. So for those of you who have multiple jobs in a workflow or multiple workflows in a pipeline, you're able to navigate more quickly to where you're going. For those of you who have one job in one workflow in one pipeline, that's actually 50% of projects. Typically not our paying projects, but still a strong 50%. And those are feeders to people who become paid projects. But regardless of whether you're paid or still a user, we want to make a good experience for you. And we understand that this introduced a second click, because before you could just click the job directly, but now you got to click this thing and then you have to figure out which one you need. Oh, it's the test one, and then you jump back. We're still thinking about how to solve for that. It's on our minds. Yeah, it's on our minds. That's really all there is to say there. For right now, little hack for you. You can see at the bottom here, it says no more pipelines to load. If you get to the bottom of a build, you can see this, and then you can jump to this legacy view where you can see everything by jobs. So these are all the individual jobs listed out. This legacy view is hanging out because not everything ran with a pipeline. So if you had some pre-pipelines processed builds that you can't find, this is where you can go to find them. But it's also a little bit of a hack to get you a job-based list. Although be warned that there's less information because we don't have the pipelines API to pull in on that. I feel like I'm talking really fast and I just said a lot of things. Reminder, you can also filter by just my pipelines. I don't have any for this specific project, so that's why it's showing that. And you can filter by branch and then go back to all branches too, and then you just see all of the pipelines for all of the branches. Okay, let me summarize that in a couple of like big key areas. Oh, I forgot one more thing. View config file. We also have this cool new thing now where you can switch between the source config and what was actually compiled. So for those of you who have orbs and you don't know what actually ran after that orb got compiled, here is what actually ran. That's it.
That is awesome.
So big three things. Pipelines page is easier to navigate for those of you who have multiple jobs in a workflow. It's packaged a lot more neatly. Hopefully you can find what you're looking for in a better way. Second thing, jobs page is a lot cleaner. There's a lot less stuff on it overall, and we tried to prioritize the stuff that matters most, being top and central. And then the third thing is probably that way improved configuration file. Cool.
Awesome. Hey, thank you very much. That's some good walkthrough. All right. So, Olu, do you have anything to add there? So we just kind of did. Do you have any thoughts?
No, Kate did an awesome job as always.
Okay, great. So,
I have a question though. I do have a
go
question
ahead.
that I want to ask.
I'll let you ask.
And I'll ask both of you. So this goes to both of you. So Kate, can you go back to that workflow graph? You know, yes, yeah, there she is. So previously, I used to get a lot of complaints because the old design was, you know, it would show the beginning one and then branch out. And if you had steps that were in parallel, they would all be, you know, kind of, if you had a lot of them running in parallel, it wouldn't show on the screen very well. And then they were always requested, the people didn't mind that, but the request was, could you put them in alphabetical order? Because, right, like that was the way they kind of view. So if they're looking for like something that started with a T, right, and they had 100 parallel consecutive things running, you know, they could quickly spot things. Is there any consideration for that in the future? Or I know it's a hard problem to solve. I'm just asking because
Totally.
Yeah.
We heard that one a lot. Will you alphabetize it? We also heard, can you make it consistent so the job is in the same place every time?
Yeah, that's what I heard too.
Yeah, and actually I am going to toss this over to Olu to talk about the technical limitations on that.
Sure. So on the previous workflow graph, it was a lot harder to do. This new iteration of it gives us more control around how we can lay things out. We've had conversations around making things more deterministic. We're going to have to do that all the way back from the stack if we wanted to. But things around alphabetizing it or sorting it in that order, it is possible as of today. The good thing with what we do have is it's easier to iterate on. And we have some really cool ideas around what we want to do around this. Remember that one thing we said about waffles? This is a waffle of the workflow graph, but we have some cool ideas we want to experiment with sooner than later around this.
Cool. All right. So let's go to, thank you for that answer. So let's go to the first question. Chad Michael, I'm going to pop here and allow you to talk.
If you like.
If you like, you are now able to talk, Chad.
Okay, great. Yeah, I unmuted, so I think I'm good
Chad,
to talk.
what's up?
Hey guys. Yeah, great work on the new UI. I think that you actually have answered my question, Kate. It was mainly about the cross project view. That's really good to hear that you're going to bring something back for us. I'm kind of one of those DevOps people that really would appreciate that. So otherwise, I feel pretty good about it.
Did that solution work for you, Chad, of being able to see like up to 20 projects at the same time?
Yeah. Well, the way that our system is set up is with the cross dependencies, we like to be able to see at a glance sort of where in the stage of the build process we are at and then where it fails. And then we have set up CircleCI to just kind of abort the rest of the process if we have a failure. And so we may not be the totally typical, configuration, but and I'm actually willing to look at maybe other ways of configuring things to fit within the new pipeline approach. But for the moment, if we're going to switch over soon, we really could use that view back.
Hey Chad, so are you using like when keys in your pipelines when you're aborting?
Yeah, we're using your API to actually indicate, initiate a pipeline build for the next dependency in the list. So we start at the lowest level, and then if that passes, it has knowledge of which other packages it should initiate the pipeline build for, and then that kind of works its way up the tree. So again, we kind of figured it out as we went along, and maybe there's better ways. So we'll keep reading your docs and looking at what you guys are doing to see if we can improve that, but that's where we're at.
And reach out, we got people to help as well.
Yeah,
Thanks,
sweet.
Chad.
Thanks for that.
Thank you, Chad.
Thank
All right, so let's see here.
Alejandro, looks like he's got, Alejandro, you want to ask your question if you're able to?
Give him a couple seconds. If not, I'll go ahead and read the answer.
There he is.
There he is.
How are you guys?
Good. Thanks
Todo bien,
for
todo bien.
Well, first of all, kudos and congratulations for this new UI. This is really cool to see the change and where CircleCI is going. Well, yeah, that question is right there. It's like I had this doubt about, okay, one of your major problems, as you said, was the original code base of the MVP was a mess. So what was the decision there? What was the working process? How did you decide to go for a complete redesign of the UI and not just doing again the code with the original design? It's like you were already there. Why changing all the design?
I can pitch in a bit here. Kate, please jump in whenever you can. So for this, what you're suggesting here was something we considered quite a bit. This was not just one of the reasons why, or the reasons why we chose to rewrite was not solely based on the code base. The code base was an indication. Kate mentioned this earlier during this call, around the idea that our UI was very job-centric. And turns out that user experience did not fit in the model with how we saw CircleCI evolving. So that was one of the key things that led us down the path of a rewrite. It was the fact that the code base was a little bit sticky, but also the user experience needed to be rethought in a way that fit with how we saw CircleCI today and in the near future. So those were the two considering factors. Technology rewrites work in some cases. It's really hard to get it to work right on UI from experience. And I think one of the things we also had with our UI was it's evolved, and part of that evolution was a lot of decisions and a lot of feature sets that were also born from that that we needed to push back on to revalidate to see if they were actually really necessary or if they were what our customers needed. Kate, you have some thoughts?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. We needed the new code base, but we also needed a different architecture that would have taken us into the future. And if we had rebuilt the new UI based on the jobs world, as opposed to this new pipelines API that was coming out, we would have been digging our hole deeper of us staying in the job space world as opposed to the pipelines world. So the calculation that got made was it is higher risk to overhaul both of them at the same time. However, it was like a similar amount of time to ship a new UI and added much more value to our users along the way.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's also a doubt because it's like when you start redesigning the UI, you get to have new doubts and new questions, and you go into newer arguments about and discussions about what's the best way to do something. Mm-hmm. And it's like maybe you're delaying some work on the development team just because of you don't know the actual answers for these design decisions. But it was almost the same time that you had considering initially, right?
Yeah, so you're saying like in a hypothetical world where we had rebuilt the old UI pixel for pixel the same way, but in this new architecture, we could have accelerated.
Maybe you have the version working sooner than what was like 14 months, maybe the whole process.
Oh, we totally could have had it working sooner. It just wouldn't have been any better for our users. So it would have been months of investment with no value from the user experience standpoint. So yeah, I suppose after that, we could have iterated on it and slowly made it better, like one module at a time. It just seemed like from a user experience perspective, we created a better reality by thinking about the whole thing holistically, as opposed to this page and then this page and then this page. And part of that is that so much of our UI is clicking from different level to different level, right? We had some weird, wild thoughts in the interim about like, can we just make the whole thing single page? You just click from the pipeline and then a workflow map opens and it's like a module and you can close it. But we didn't go with that for a reason. But we did want to think about it holistically as we rebuilt it, rather than like, well, we could make this button blue instead of red, and that would be like, it was a less incremental approach, wasn't it? There's pros and cons to both. I won't deny it.
Cool. Thank you, Alejandro. Thank you very much. All right. So the next one here, we have Norbert. Let's find Norbert in this list. Assuming he's still on. He is. We're going to allow him to talk here. All right, Norbert, you want to voice your question?
Hey, Jeremy. Yeah. My question is about the design process that CircleCI followed. So the design is quite different, and I can imagine you had to sell that design to a lot of people in your organization. And so I'm just curious to how that process went, what sort of learnings you got from that, and just what sort of technologies you use, what sort of tools, stuff like that.
Yeah, I'll speak to this high level, and then I'll once again kick it over to Olu. I like this tag teaming we're doing, and maybe he'll say something completely different from the developer perspective. So what I view this as high level was that there was no handoffs ever. It was always fully integrated. So there's this philosophy about product, that product development and design are a three-legged stool. And if you operate without any of those legs, the stool falls over. It doesn't work. And we really, really took that to heart. So we had weekly design reviews where the designers would show us what they were working on for the next feature we would add. The developers would add input based on both the technical implementation aspect, but also like how they would use it. Like if I had to interact with this feature every day, and they do because we dog food our own product, would I like this? And then from the product perspective, chiming in about, well, this is the user story. Have we really solved this user's problem? And then it was often quite a lot of back and forth. Some new features went through 3 or 4 design reviews before we implemented anything. So there was never kind of that waterfall process you think about where like the designer goes into a cave and makes something beautiful and then maybe talks to the product manager and then the PM throws it over a wall and has the developer work on it. It was always like constant iteration amongst all 3 of the parties. Oli, do you want to speak a little bit more to that? Or I think yeah. Robert also asked about tools we used.
Sure, I can dive in there. I think for us, particularly at the inception of this team, we wanted to do a few things differently. And how we collaborated together as a team was one of the most important things for us. And we made a conscious effort to not see design as a different piece of the team. It was the notion of working as a single team. And that manifested itself in a lot of ways. There was less fully thought out designs, like we were collaborating, sharing screenshots, collaborating across design and engineering a lot. And this is to the power of like the waffle, right? Having that terminology actually pushed us in a lot of cases where some cases we might have designs that were somewhat a lot more thought out or a lot heavier on the feature set. And it was very common for us to throw the words waffle. Well, that's not waffle. Like, how can we get it to the customer sooner? How can we iterate on this sooner? So the key thing for us from that perspective was there was no handoffs, like Kate said. We worked together, it got to the point where designers too were actually contributing and are contributing to the code base. That was one of the things we worked on early in terms of empowering our design team to also be able to contribute. And that generated a lot of good, particularly having designers go through the perspective of using the software they built it on to build out the software made a lot of feedback loops short for us. So it was just like being super conscious about how we collaborated as one team, not necessarily engineering, product, and design. In terms of tools, one of our goals early on, or across the code base and with the new architecture, is to reduce our feedback loop as much as possible. Number one is reducing that feedback loop. Number two is building confidence. So we actually use tools that go between design and engineering. We're building on React, so everything is a component. We're working on building systems that reusable systems or reusable components that cut across both design and engineering. But that manifests itself in our tooling. So one of the things we use for tooling is Storybook. And from Storybook, every component has a story. There's visibility to design and engineering, in product on some level with what the different states of a component is. Then we do visual diff testing using Chromatic. That's the app, and that brings designers into the loop of change, right? So whenever a component or a page was changing, we could actually loop that, the designers into that change and verify that that's the intended change, or that's what they intended to have happen in production. So the key thing here for us was just collaboration, no handoffs as much as possible. Number two is reducing the feedback loop between the customers and engineering, but also between design and engineering. Us doing everything we can to increase our confidence with every change that rolls out. And in a lot of cases, that means involving designers in what change is going out to production.
That's great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Norbert. So the next one, let's see.
Hold on, Jeremy, before you get on that. So I just wanted to say, I know we slotted for an hour, but we're going to stay on, right? Okay, everybody good with staying on? And I just want everybody to know on the list and or the attendees, you know, if you got to bounce, we want you to stay, but we're still going to, you know, honor the charity donation. But please stay on. We're going to be here. I mean, I think we're all pretty much
we're good
here from Circle. And we want to continue these conversations. Really cool. I'm really loving the format. I'm hoping everybody's getting something out of this, and we're going to keep going. So go ahead, Jay. Jeremy,
so
whatever.
Jay,
Just give you a new nickname. See?
Yeah. Hey, you know, again, like I said, I'll answer anything. Looks like we have a question from Stefan, but he is not on anymore. So let's jump to that question really quick. And just so his question was, if only 33% of projects use multiple workflows, which is what was mentioned, why is this UI made single workflow projects so much more cumbersome? Getting to the steps view for a failed job takes 2 clicks, one that opens an accordion section and requires waiting on an animation when it only took 1 in the old UI. And you mentioned a little bit in your kind of walkthrough that you know that there's a couple questions. Can you touch on that real quickly?
Yeah. 33% of projects use multiple workflows within a pipeline. I think it's like 60% of projects use multiple jobs within a workflow. I think it's actually 50% of projects use multiple jobs within a workflow. And that number is growing. So the trend of our user base is not to get less complex, it's to get more complex. So 33% using workflows in a pipeline already, but we only announced pipelines, gosh, what was it, like last summer, Olu? And so that uptick is happening. And as we mentioned, the future of CircleCI is to make that even more desirable, because we're adding so many features in the future that will make it beneficial to have multiple workflows in a pipeline, or allow you to just, anyway. So it's getting back to that building towards the future thing. If we are only going to, if we don't want to overhaul the entire UI again next year, which we don't, then we need to make sure that this will last and take us into the future of CircleCI. So specifically what you're asking, the thing you're talking about is, like, why is it more cumbersome to click into a single jobs page? So I think that has less to do with the 30% have multiple workflows in a pipeline, and more to do with the 50% who have multiple jobs within a workflow. And yes, correct. We waffled on that one. So the waffle approach was the drop-down menu that you have to click to open, and then click into a new job. We have since seen that for our users who only have one job in one workflow and in one pipeline, that doesn't work very well. It does introduce an extra click for you. So we had some ideas tossed around about how we were going to address that. This goes back to that 3-legged stool thing. we had one idea, we realized it wasn't technically feasible. We're now back to the drawing board on how we can implement that in a different way instead. In the interim, I suggest, you can always look through that legacy view that I showed you all earlier and use that for now, but it's a short-term hack and we need a longer-term solution for that.
Yeah, makes sense. Great, thank you for answering that. Okay, so the next one will pop on here. It's the next highly quoted. So Daniel Levy, let's see if Daniel's still on. He is. So Daniel, I'm going to go ahead and allow you to talk. You want to voice your question? Thanks for joining.
Yeah, for sure. Can you guys hear me? Cool.
Loud
So yeah,
and clear.
cool. So yeah, one challenge that we've had in the past with the old UI and the new UI is finding workflows. We have a release build that gets kicked off for a mobile app each week, and kind of tracking back to that. If it's been a few days or something like that is sometimes a bit difficult. So I was just wondering if you were going to introduce some sort of search or filtering by workflow with the new UI.
Short term, it's not on a horizon. Long term, it's a thing that has been in and out of designs and is on our radar. Quick question in the interim, is that workflow that runs once a week, is it on a separate branch by any chance?
No, it just runs on our master branch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never mind. There goes my idea. Yeah, I don't have a good solution for now. It is something we've talked about. It just hasn't been on the short-term radar.
Cool. Thank you. And thank you for your guys' candor. It's nice to hear what you guys are thinking.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for sticking around. I'm surprised how many of you are still hanging out.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
All right, so the next question we have here, there's a number here that are all kind of voted the same. Kate, you want to take one? Pick one here?
Yeah, Kate gets to choose because they're all threes.
It looks like the top one is actually a pretty easy one. Will there be a way to...
That kind of goes against the yeah, go on.
Oh, come on. I'll give myself an easy
No
one.
softballs, no softballs.
All right, we'll follow it out. Let's try and figure out which one will be the hardest to answer at.
Hey, why don't we let Olu pick it?
Well, this is a quick one. So it's, will there be a way to easily select a specific branch in the pipelines view? Currently, you have to scroll through a list of branches, which may be gigantic, before you're able to Control F search for the one you want. So you're talking about the drop down, right? If Caleb's still on the line, he can chime in. I think he's talking about the drop down and how it's not very good. It's just a very basic drop down menu.
You can talk.
Yeah, I'm that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Also on our radar. What we want is, if you look at the add projects page, which we didn't really demonstrate on here, they have like a better version of that drop down because you're able to type to complete. And then so you can just start typing the first couple of letters and then you'll get the rest of the branch and easily go to it. Our intention is to go back to both the project picker and the branch picker eventually and allow you to do the same thing. Again, with the waffle approach, it hasn't been the highest need. It's kind of behind, we have like the cross project view we got to get done, and colorization and step output, and this 1-1-1 job that we've talked about a few times, but it is on our radar for the future.
Thanks.
All right, Olu gets to pick one.
Go for it, Olu.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, just call out the person's name if they're on, and we'll light them up to talk.
There's one, I think this is from Norbert too. There's one specifically addressed to Kate here. Is Norbert still on?
No, I think he bounced.
Yeah, I
Oh, no,
he
he's there.
Go,
Yeah,
no,
he's there.
Yeah, go ahead and just answer there.
I got it. He's on.
Yeah, the question is to Kate. You were talking about users losing trust in your product because you presented it in an unfinished state. What did you learn from that process, and what would you do differently in the future?
Thanks, Norbert. And Olu, you totally threw me under the bus, man. You picked a one that was addressed to me. No, just kidding. Okay, I'll present my thoughts, but then Olu has to answer about how he would have done it differently if we were doing this again.
Just do it in like 3 sentences, right? And then toss it over. Yeah?
Yeah. Well, it's really controversial because, all right, Olu, your turn. No. So I think, so here's what I would do differently. I think I would make it bigger and more obvious that this was still in an experimental stage. So we added this modal that popped up after a while that said like, oh, this is your first time on the new UI, just so you know, it could still change, et cetera, et cetera. And that was the brilliance of our UX designer who said, we cannot live without this. If I could go back in time and tell myself something, it would be, first of all, like, let her make it even bigger. I think that like making it even more sort of in your face with some kind of maybe like consistent banner up top or some kind of like framing around the whole web page or something like that, that just made it constantly obvious you are still seeing an experimental version of this. That would have been a lot better for our users. Overall, I have no regrets about letting users on earlier. I would let them on just as early again. There's a startup adage that if you're not embarrassed by what you put out there, you've launched too late. And I really do feel like the user feedback we've gotten along the way has made a stronger product at the end. But I think like just even more in your faceness that like, this is going to change, it's not done yet, would have been helpful.
Yeah, Kate, I completely agree with you on that. I think there's one more thing we, looking back, might be good to have added, which is just letting folks know what has changed over time. I think we got in the loop where we still got feedback we've addressed. Better yet, just connecting the customers to the iterations. So like we told them that this will change over time, but I think we could have done a better job of letting them know that, hey, since you last looked, here's what has changed. I think that would have allowed us to have a better feedback loop, in my opinion. So we'll do the exact same thing, but be more conscious about how we get feedback and how we share feedback back with them.
Yeah, I absolutely have to agree with Olu there. That was the part that I was also missing. Like I looked at the new designs and stuff that was being built and always very impressed, but I always had the feeling like I was only looking at 5% of the stuff that had changed.
Yeah, and just quick thing, Norbert, realize you're with Chromatic and Storybook. We love your product. A lot of this UI stuff was built on top of what y'all have done. Thank you so much. We appreciate your work.
Thank you. That's very humbling.
All right.
That's awesome. I actually think that leads really well into the next one down. If I can jump into that one from Chris.
Do it,
cool.
yeah.
So Chris, feel free to join us to banter a little bit here. And I'll just start talking.
Is this Chris Barton?
Yeah, he's no longer on.
Okay, I'll talk to myself. Why not? It says, why not contact people that opted in and then opted out again? I opted in but had to opt out because we couldn't see cross-project status. So topical, the cross-project status. Okay, so what we did was creepier than that. So as you go through our website, we track the events, right? This is pretty standard, I think, within the technical world. We track like what % of users who click this button do this thing next, or what % of users who are on the job page go to the workflow page from there, etc. So when you click the opt-out button, it takes you back to the old UI, and then you usually do a thing. And that was actually a great, amazing source of feedback for us on what mattered most to users, because no matter what they said to us in these like face-to-face user experience things or what they ranted about on Twitter, what they did is this is a true source of truth. So we watched like after you opted out, where did you go next? And so like one great example of this is that we had this super high percentage of users who would opt out and then go filter by branch on the jobs page. And that's how we knew what we're missing most is a branch filter on the pipelines page. And that's one example. There were many more along the way of what we figured out people needed. Contacting people who opted out again kind of leads into the last question of like, if you opted out because we didn't have that branch filter, it would have been really cool of us to follow up and say, hey, we have that branch filter now. Or you're right, follow up by email for a user experience session. And we did some of that, but we only did it for people who left their email in a pop-up form because not everyone wants to be creeped on and followed up with and said like, hey, we have seen that you have opted out of the new UI. That could get a little weird for our users. They didn't opt in to be followed up with that way. So kept it anonymous about who was opting out unless they left their email. And then we were able to follow up with them and learn more.
I have
All right.
I have one that I want Jonathan Mora This is a pretty good question. I'd like to get answered. So, Jonathan, is he on still? Yeah, he is. Awesome. Yep. So, Jonathan, go ahead. You got a hot mic?
He's got a couple. So.
Oh, I'm talking about the Unix one, the UX, about building it in a modular way. Building that.
Hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Jonathan.
Awesome. Yeah, so I work at a startup, and having the ability to see like kind of all of our projects together and being able to like customize the views would be great. So my question was, is the code base built in a way that you're going to allow users to pick and choose what they want to see, UI, UX wise?
That's a really great question. Kate, did you want to jump in, or? All right, I can take this. As of today, I think one of the key things from at least our the UX side of things is like our current app is built from a curated experience, meaning that the idea of picking and choosing isn't there yet. It might come up in the future, but like we're building an experience that we believe will work for a lot of our users, cutting across a bunch of roles. And if there's learnings around the edges of that, of things we can do better in making it modular, I'm sure we're listening. If you have ideas, please share them. But as of now, the web UI experience today is built around that curated experience. That's around how we see CI/CD. That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I was just curious if there was any like talk like project managers and trying to figure that out.
Yeah, so thanks, Jonathan. I'll pick if how about Mark Cohen? He's got one in there. Mark, you there? I don't think so. I don't see him on the list.
Down through the list here.
How about there's one from Irene.
Yes, let's take that one. Kate, did you first get customers' feedback? And actually, let's see if Irene's here. Let's let her.
She's not.
Then okay. So, did you first get customers' feedback the old UI before thinking of changing to the new UI, or is it something that we just kind of thought about? What really drove the decision to change the UI?
Yeah, so actually it started before my time. I joined CircleCI in December of 2018, and talk about this new UI had gone on for approximately a year before that. So there was quite a buildup. And during that time, my colleague Kunal had done a lot of research with users, current users, big users, small users, et cetera, to ask about their experience with the current UI and get some initial designs in place for that. And so by the time I got there, the company as a whole was pretty set on needing a new UI for the reasons that we already talked about, of both needing that new product view to take us into the future, but also needing the new code base. And so, yes, there was a lot of feedback that was covered about the old UI before the new UI got started. And then they kind of threw me on it when I joined, and I was so excited because I do have some UX training in my background, and this was exactly what I wanted to do at CircleCI. So I picked up all the research that had already been done, reviewed all of it, watched all the videos, and then started doing my own. And like the first ones we did, we had nothing to show people yet. So we were still jumping on the phone with people, mostly talking about the old UI and what they hated the most, and then showing them designs for the new UI and saying, how do you think you would find this? Where do you think this would be? What do you think that button does, et cetera? Yeah, so we went from there. So yes, there was a lot of old UI research done before we started the new one.
All right, so we're coming up to like 4:30, so that a half hour over, but there's one more question I'm choosing from a person named William Richard. He's on. I think it's a pretty good question. And we're going to probably have a hard stop at 4:30. Is that right, everyone? Circle team, all right? We got to get back to work. Unless, Kate, you want to keep going, I'll stay with you.
I think you can probably tell my voice is getting a little dry here.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll stop at 4:30 or Eastern time.
Next 8 minutes.
Yeah. So, Mr. Richard, please.
Hi, everyone. Thank you again for taking the time to be really open and clear about this project with us. I really appreciate y'all taking that time and doing that. My question is about one of the answers earlier. I maybe misheard, maybe misunderstood, but it kind of sounded like there's this idea that Circle was interested in encouraging use of more complex features in the future. And I kind of was interested in hearing a little bit more about like what that means, because we already struggle just to like teach people about less complex features outside of people who aren't in Circle or like, you know, really, really into CI/CD. And so, yeah, kind of what's that future path look like in terms of complexity?
Yeah, I said that bad. I shouldn't have said it that way. So the main job to be done, as we define it for CircleCI, is, and I'm going to sound like a robot when I read this, but I think it's important, is for users to locate and fix errors in their application with a related job to be done to enable every good validated change to be shipped to users seamlessly. So what we do in order to get you to that point, like, could be like a lot of simplification or could help you get more complicated. And it kind of depends user to user, right? So for some of our users, they want to keep it very simple. And actually that aligns quite well with this new UI as we've built it in most ways, because we've simplified so much and pushed the most important information to the top center. And then the rest of it sort of to the edges, or you have to click a drop down to find it. And so hopefully for your users, it will stay very simple. However, there are increasingly complex projects on CircleCI. And for those people, a super simplified CI version will not allow them to accomplish those jobs to be done of locating and fixing the errors in their application and confidently shipping validated code. And so allowing more and more upgrades in the future to allow you to do that. And there's plenty of features we could ship that align with that, right? There's a question in there about insights. Insights is a really good one. You can ignore it completely if your use case is simple, but if you have a very complicated use case and you want a lot of insights about it, we want to build a functionality for you to be able to do that. Currently, it's in API form. There's a beta API out for that right now. Our plan is to eventually build it back to the UI. So William, long story short, no, we are not pushing people to make things more complicated. Hopefully what the UI did was make things more simple. However, we still want to give you that unlimited power to make it complicated, not complicated, but to make it more adjusted to you specifically, if that's important to you getting your jobs done.
Great. Thank you, William. Appreciate it. So the last, I'm going to kind of finish things up here with a, it's one of the questions that was asked, but I think it's really relevant to kind of end us with. What's next? What's next for CircleCI? What's kind of on the roadmap in terms of what's next for the UI?
For CircleCI or for the UI?
Let's go for CircleCI. That was the question. I was going to lead us, but let's just go for CircleCI.
Yeah. Oh, it's so much easier for me to answer the UI thing. So let me just give that, because that's what people called in for. So I think what's next for the UI is we got to give you that cross-project view that we've talked about of up to 20 projects. We've got to fix colorization in the step output. We have to allow some way that we haven't quite gotten a good solution for yet to allow you to get to a specific job if you have one job and one workflow and one pipeline without it being 17 extra clicks. And there's something else that I'm forgetting. But I think those are the big hot ones right now. I think the other thing, like the things that are coming for CircleCI is we're talking about a lot of custom plans. So allowing you to upgrade from a standard performance plan to a custom plan more easily, see what you've done more easily. There's a lot of talk about transparency with like, this is what burned credits, this is what did not burn credits. There's a lot more coming with insights. We're trying to harness that data to give you more insights on this job is getting slower this job is getting faster. This one's over 10 minutes, and here's the top 3 ways that you can speed it up, etc. And I think those are the 3 big areas of change. There's also a big initiative right now around build what is it called? Build Agent Anywhere, which I wish I could speak more to, but is not necessarily my domain. But it's bringing your own hardware to the table, essentially. And we're excited about that. And I think those are the big areas of short-term growth for us.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it both,
Jeremy,
Olu and Kate. Yep.
Before we continue, we forgot to tell our fun facts before, and I didn't hear any, and myself forgot to, but Olu, Kate, before we close this out.
Close us out with a fun fact about yourselves.
Yeah. Hurry up. You knew this was coming.
Oh, okay. I biked across the country in 2009. Seattle.
There you go.
Wow.
Oh,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Kind of pales in comparison, isn't it?
I know. I love to learn instruments. I play 8 instruments, and I'm flirting with a 9th one now. So, yeah.
What's that 9th one?
The trumpet.
Okay. Nice.
Ooh, let's get a little sample next time.
Hey, I got you.
Great. Thank you.
All right, Jeremy, what's your fun fact, man?
My
Come on.
fun. So we're going with that. Fun fact: I used to own a coffee shop and competed in barista competitions. That's my fun fact while having a full-time job in tech. Yeah.
Y'all are amazing.
I've never been told to be the smartest cookie on the block.
My fun fact is I have a pen that was in actual orbit from an astronaut when I used to work in the Air Force. Yeah. And it's a space pen. It's the one that writes upside down, right?
Yes. Yes. Perfect. All right.
Yeah, let's close this thing out.
Closing it out. Thank you again. Keep trying to close this out. We keep thinking of great new things to share. But Kate and Olu, thank you very much for taking the time. Thank you to everybody that came, had questions. I will reiterate those that we didn't get to. We'll take some time. We'll go through them and we'll provide some answers back so make sure that you were answered. Please go out and join on our community forum, dev community forum at discuss.circleci.com. And charity. And yes, we will, reiterating the point that all those that were participants attended, we will be sending to you the information so you can go and pick out what charity through tisbest.org you will be donating on our, through us. So thank you again to everybody that joined, and keep your eyes out for more sessions to come like this.